Sometimes life feels like standing in front of a fogged-up mirror. You sense there's something there, something real, just beyond the blur. But no matter how hard you try to focus, the image doesn't quite clear. That's what it's like before your soul is ready to see. The truth isn't gone, it's simply hidden behind the condensation of old thoughts, emotions and experiences. The universe doesn't rush this moment. It waits patiently, like a teacher who knows that understanding can't be forced. It can only unfold when the student's eyes are open enough to recognize what's already there. Perception is not a window, it's a filter. Every joy, heartbreak and belief shapes how the world reflects back. Reality isn't some fixed stage performing outside of awareness. It's more like a living mirror that bends and twists to match the vibration of the one looking into it. When the mind is cluttered with fear, the world looks hostile. When the heart is open, life suddenly feels full of meaning. The difference isn't out there, it's within the observer. The soul only begins to see truth when the fog of conditioning starts to thin, when awareness grows curious enough to question the stories it's been told about what's real. Imagine reality as an infinite ocean and consciousness as a diver. The surface seems vast, yet it's just the beginning. You can't see the coral gardens below until you're willing to descend, and you can't descend until your lungs are strong enough to handle the pressure. The deeper you go, the clearer it becomes that light doesn't disappear. It merely changes form. The hidden beauty was always there, waiting for your eyes to adjust. That's how the unseen dimensions of truth work. They reveal themselves only when your inner strength matches their depth. When the soul finally ripens for this kind of seeing, the shift is quiet but irreversible. The world starts to shimmer differently, not because the world has changed, but because you have. Every object, every face, every moment begins to carry a faint echo of something sacred, something familiar. You start to sense that life isn't happening to you, but unfolding through you. And that realization, that your perception determines what you're ready to see, is the first key. Because once your soul reaches that readiness, the fog begins to lift, and the reflection staring back isn't the old you anymore. It's truth itself, looking through your own eyes. Once the mirror starts to clear, something unexpected happens. You realize the fog was never a mistake. It was protection. Every layer of misunderstanding, every blind spot, every unanswered question was there for a reason. The universe doesn't hide truth to tease you. It hides it to prepare you. Like a gardener covering tender seedlings until the frost has passed, existence shields the mind from what it isn't ready to comprehend. And that's what the veils are, spiritual insulation for an awakening soul. You'll only see what your system can hold without breaking, and that's not punishment, it's grace. Each veil is made of something different. Some are woven from childhood beliefs, others from cultural conditioning or old pain you haven't yet faced. They form a kind of spiritual atmosphere, shaping how much light can enter at once. When your consciousness expands, these veils thin naturally. It's not an act of force, it's more like a flower opening with the sunrise. You can't rush the petals without tearing them. The process moves at the rhythm of your soul's own maturity. When the lesson is learned, the layer dissolves on its own, revealing a slightly clearer horizon each time. Think of awakening as learning to adjust to brightness after years in a dim room. The first flicker of truth can feel overwhelming. Too much color, too much clarity. That's why the universe doesn't fling the door wide open all at once. It lets in light gradually, enough for your eyes to adapt. These veils, then, aren't walls between you and reality. They're filters softening the intensity of revelation. They protect you from seeing more than you can integrate and ensure that when the truth does arrive, you're stable enough to embody it rather than collapse under it. And when the time finally comes for one of those veils to lift, it rarely announces itself with grand ceremony. There's no thunder, no divine spotlight, just a subtle shift, like turning a page in a book you didn't realize you were writing. A quiet conversation lands differently. A silence feels charged. A pattern you've repeated for years suddenly makes sense. It's not that reality changed overnight. It's that you're finally seeing what was there all along. The familiar becomes sacred, and the ordinary begins to glow. That's how the soul tells you, you're ready. The beauty of it all is that this readiness doesn't come from effort. It comes from surrender. The veils lift not when you chase enlightenment, but when you stop running from yourself. You start meeting your fears with honesty, your wounds with compassion, and life with curiosity. And in doing so, the universe responds, not by revealing some distant heaven, but by unveiling the heaven that's been quietly breathing through every moment you've ever lived. That's the secret most never notice. The truth was never hidden. You just had to grow into the version of yourself who could finally see it. When the veils start to thin, the world doesn't suddenly shout its secrets, it whispers them. At first, the messages are subtle, almost playful. You think of someone, and moments later they appear in your life. A word keeps repeating itself in strange places. A number follows you from receipts to clocks to dreams. These aren't coincidences. They're the universe learning to speak your language. Or maybe you're finally quiet enough to hear its voice. Truth doesn't arrive with noise. It flows through patterns, timing, and presence. And when your soul reaches that threshold of readiness, everything around you begins to rearrange itself into a conversation meant just for you. Every sign is like a brushstroke on the canvas of awareness, forming an image you couldn't recognize before. Once your consciousness expands, you start seeing how life itself communicates, through synchronicities, emotions, sensations, and subtle nudges. The universe doesn't use words because it doesn't need to. Its language is energy, rhythm, and resonance. When you're tuned in, you feel it. A strange peace before a big decision. A sudden pull toward a place or person. Even discomfort becomes part of the dialogue, steering you toward what needs to be understood. You realize that life isn't random, it's responsive. It mirrors your state of being with absolute precision. But here's what most people miss. You can't force this language. You can't demand signs or decode them intellectually. The universe doesn't reveal truth to satisfy curiosity. It reveals it to serve growth. The more you chase, the quieter it gets. That's because the language of the universe doesn't speak to impatience or ego. It speaks to presence. You begin to notice that the moment you stop overanalyzing, meaning arises naturally. The right book finds you. The right person calls. The right word lands exactly when you need it. It's not about controlling the message. It's about aligning with the frequency where truth already exists. And once your soul adjusts to this frequency, the signs evolve from external to internal. Intuition sharpens. You start to feel truth before it arrives. The mind begins to trust what the heart already knows. It's like learning to hear music that was always playing beneath the noise of thought. Every synchronicity, every intuitive whisper, every moment of déjà vu becomes a confirmation that you've stepped into a deeper rhythm of existence. You'll only see this when you're ready, because the universe's voice isn't hidden. It's simply tuned to the same vibration as your awakening. Once you match it, you realize it was never silent at all. As the language of the universe becomes familiar, something profound begins to unfold. There's a moment, quiet, unplanned, when all those signs and whispers stop feeling like messages from something else and start feeling like echoes of your own soul. You're no longer deciphering clues, you're remembering them. The division between me and everything else begins to dissolve, and what once felt external now feels deeply intimate. This is the moment of seeing, the point where perception and presence merge, and life reveals itself not as something happening to you, but as something awakening through you. It rarely arrives as a lightning strike. More often, it slips in softly, like dawn creeping over the horizon. One day, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The same sky you've seen 1,000 times looks impossibly alive. Colors feel louder, air feels heavier with meaning, and you catch yourself smiling for no reason at all. That's because the veil between seer and seen has thinned. You're not just observing the world anymore, you're feeling its pulse from within. A sunset doesn't appear outside of you, it blooms inside your awareness. The beauty that once lived out there now radiates from your own being. This is the stage where understanding deepens into embodiment. Seeing isn't about intellectual clarity, it's about resonance. The mind loosens its grip, and life flows through you like water through open hands. You begin to notice that your reactions soften, old triggers fade. The constant search for answers gives way to a quiet trust in the mystery. Presence becomes its own reward. You no longer crave explanations because you sense the deeper truth, that existence doesn't need to make sense to be sacred. It just is. And when your soul reaches this readiness, you realize that the meaning of life was never hidden. It was waiting for you to slow down enough to see it breathing in everything. But there's something else that happens in this moment of seeing. You stop striving to become someone. You start remembering who you've always been beneath the noise, awareness itself, pure and steady. The enlightenment people chase isn't some final destination. It's the recognition that you were never separate from what you were seeking. When your soul is ready, this realization lands effortlessly. It doesn't come with fanfare or fireworks. It arrives in stillness, in the spaces between breaths, in the simplicity of now. And once you've seen the world through this lens, nothing ever looks the same again, because you're no longer looking at life, you're looking as life. Once you begin to see through new eyes, a deeper realization takes root. You've never just been the witness, you've been the creator all along. The world that now glows with connection and meaning isn't a reward for awakening, it's a reflection of it. When your soul is ready, you start noticing how thoughts ripple outward like vibrations on water, forming the patterns of your days, your relationships, your experiences. Every feeling, every belief, every quiet assumption about life is like a seed dropped into the invisible soil of reality. The universe doesn't decide what grows there, you do. You just didn't always realize how powerful the garden of your mind truly was. Creation doesn't happen somewhere far away, in some mystical process separate from you. It happens every moment you think, feel, and imagine. Most of the time, people create unconsciously, repeating the same emotions and expectations day after day, not realizing they're scripting their future from the past. It's why cycles repeat, why certain lessons keep returning in different faces and forms. But once your awareness expands, you start to see the pattern clearly. You notice how reality mirrors your inner vibration so precisely that it almost feels personal. And that's when the shift happens. You stop trying to control the outside world and begin tending to the energy that's shaping it. Imagination becomes sacred at this stage. Not the kind of daydreaming that escapes reality, but the kind that programs it. When you visualize from a place of presence and belief, you're not pretending. You're tuning into a version of reality that already exists within the universal field. The more coherence between what you feel and what you envision, the faster the outer world begins to rearrange itself. But the universe doesn't respond to desire alone. It responds to alignment. You can't manifest peace from a restless heart or abundance from a mindset of lack. The field reflects what you are, not what you wish to be. And that's why readiness matters so much. Until your soul vibrates in harmony with what you seek, you won't be able to see it, even if it's right in front of you. When the soul finally reaches that readiness, creation becomes effortless. You stop forcing outcomes and start flowing with them. Life feels less like a struggle and more like choreography. You move, the universe responds, and together you create the dance. Every thought becomes intentional, every emotion conscious. Reality no longer happens to you, it unfolds through you. And that's the great secret hidden in plain sight. You'll only see this once your soul is ready, because the act of seeing and the act of creating are the same thing. The moment you awaken to your own creative power, you realize the universe was never hiding anything. It was waiting for you to remember that you've been painting the whole picture all along.